Hello to everyone who's online at the moment. I just jumped online a little bit early just to make sure that everything's working. So we'll just wait another couple of minutes just to wait till everyone gets on, and then we'll kick off. Lots to cover today. If anyone's actually on now, would they mind just making sure that everything's working this time in terms of volume and recording? If someone could just write in the live chat, that'd be awesome, just to double check that it's all working. Thanks for joining, everyone. Got a few coming on now. Maybe just as we get started as well, if someone wants to write in the chat where they're from, where in the world they're coming in from, that'd be great. We'll just wait another minute and then we'll kick off. Okay, so let's just get going. And obviously this is going to be recorded and people can just jump on as we go. Okay, thanks, Richard. Cool, so we've got a lot to cover today. Heaps of advanced stuff. How you can go from being an Excel user to a Power BI super user. So we're going to go over some concepts that you're probably not that familiar with. If you've just been developing in Excel and you're starting to move to Power BI, there's quite a few techniques and concepts which don't really exist in Excel. So we're going to go through a few of those today, and then you're going to be able to see very quickly, wow, what you can do with Power BI just far outweighs what you historically have ever been able to achieve with Excel. So the things we're going to go over today are concepts one's called parameter tables. So this is where we can integrate a table of information into our model. It doesn't have a physical relationship to our model, but we can harvest a calculation or harvest a measure and then integrate that into our model. And I'm going to show you how you can do that and create dynamic visuals. So you can, in Power BI, actually create a visual which changes what it showcases based on a selection that you make. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then the third thing we're going to go through is multiple fact tables. So in your data model, you may just have, say, a sales and transaction table, but a lot of the times you actually have more than one fact table. You might also want to integrate an inventory table, for example, and then compare information between what your sales are to what your inventory is. And so I'm going to show you how you can actually do that as well, and how we can compare. We can compare measures from our sales tables to measures in our inventory table and do some pretty advanced stuff there. The next concept is measure branching. So measure branching is where we use measures within measures. So we start with some simple core measures and then we build out into more advanced logic. And I'll show you how you can do some pretty advanced, or incorporate some pretty advanced logic into your data models. Then the last thing I'm going to go over is row level security. So row level security, the way I think of row level security is possibly brings the most scale out of any feature when you're building analysis in Power BI desktop. So if you think of a scenario where you're a head office and you want to send some analysis out to your retail sites or your regional offices, and you don't want someone to be able to see other regions' information. Well, what you can do in Power BI is you can build you don't have to go and build 10 different reports. You can actually build a security model on top of your core model, and then just provision people to see certain elements or certain regions of that same model. So I'm going to show you how you can actually do that. It's really, really powerful. And then hopefully by the end of it, you've been able to see all of these different techniques combined using all these different techniques. You'll be able to see and you'll be going, wow, what I'm able to achieve now just through Power BI is compared to historical work in Excel is just so far removed. It's just so much better. So that's the goal, and that's what we want to achieve. And the plan is to go through quite a lot of this content in the next sort of 30, 35 minutes, and then hopefully we can have a few questions after that, and maybe do 5 or 10 minutes of questions, or to see how we go. So hopefully that sounds cool. And if you're happy with that, maybe just chuck it in the chat, and I think we'll just get going. I'll start sharing my screen, and we'll run through all of these different techniques, building out some pretty compelling analysis. So let me just change over to sharing my screen here. 1 second. Okay, so hopefully all you can see that. Now let's just go over the scenario again. So if you saw the last webinar, we had an organization which was selling through the east coast of the US. So we're going to use exactly the same data here, but we're going to incorporate some more data, obviously, with some inventory information. Now, here we've got the data model. Now, the first thing that you've always got to do, so we're skipping the query editor here. We're just going to jump straight to the data model because I want to show you the techniques to use here. So obviously we've got no relationships in our model here. So let's just quickly review how you do that. You want to put your what are called your lookup tables, your filtering tables at the top. And then you want to build relationships between these tables down to the fact table, which is the sales table, the transactions table. So the way we do that is we've got some IDs here, and I'm just going to connect up my ID here with my ID down in my sales table. And you see here that the relationship is correct. I'm going to join up my customer ID with the sales table, my product ID, and then last of all, I'm going to put in the date to the purchase date. So as you can see, now we've got a model. We're building a model of our data. I won't go over the points that we went over last webinar, but this is how you should always try and aim to structure your models if possible. It just makes it so much easier to understand what you're actually doing when you're building out your reports. Okay, so now that we've built our model, we can actually start building our measures, which I always recommend you should do. Always try and build measures. Don't just use the columns, the naked columns within any of these tables to run calculations, but we'll start off building some simple measures, and then we'll start jumping in to some of these techniques. The first one we'll go over is parameter tables. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create a new table. I want to create my measure table, right? So we went over this last time, but let's just quickly do it again. So you've got to enter data, and then I'm just going to make a table with basically nothing in it. I'm going to call it key measures. So this will load up, and then this is where I'm going to put all my measures from here on out. I'm going to, where is it here? I've got it here. Okay, so then I'm going to click in here. I'm going to create my first measure here. I'm going to call it total sales. And this is what I always do. I always start off by building these measures because these are the measures that we're going to utilize in our visualizations, but we may filter them differently. We may want to look at them slightly differently with different dimensions, etc. But it's always going to start with a core measure like this. So in this case, I'm going to use sum X. I'm going to put the table in, and then I'm going to find the sales quantity. like so, and then I'm going to times it by how much each product, what the price was of each product. So the current price, which is in the price table, and now I've got my total sales measure. Go on, I'm just going to quickly build my other measures, and I'm just going to do copy and paste like so. I'm going to go total costs. Always copy and paste, it just makes things so much easier. And then in that product table, we've got a cost column as well. So now I've got total costs, and then because we've got total sales and total costs, it's easy to move to total profits. I'm going to go total profits here. Total costs. Very quickly, we've got some pretty decent information, and then lastly, I'm going to go find my profit margins like so, and I'm going to use the divide function, and I'm going to go because I've got total profits and I've got total sales. Now we can work out the percent profit margin, and we're already actually using one of the techniques we're going to go into a bit deeper, but measure branching. Because if you think about this measure, all we're doing is referencing other measures, other measures that we've done before, and this total profits is actually on its third branch. So I'm just going to enter that, and then make sure, first of all, just going to make sure all of these are the correct format, which you do up in the modeling section here. So we'll just quickly do all those. And then I'm just going to hide this column because that's what we've got to do to finalize this measure table. And then we'll click in and click out. And now if you see up in the right-hand side here, now we've got a key measures measure table. And this is going to hold all our measures going forward. Cool. So hopefully I've shown you actually now how quickly you can get together some of these calculations. Already we've got some pretty decent calculations that we could utilize a number of different ways in our models, etc. I just want to make one small change here. Oh, I'll do that in a second. Okay, cool. So now we're going to jump into parameter tables. Okay, so parameters. So quite a common occurrence is where you might want to only see information over a certain time period. And when I say certain time period, I mean things like you might only want to see the last 7 days. You might only want to see the 14 days, 60 days, 90 days, 1 year, etc. But you might want to dynamically view this information. Some days you might want shorter term, but some days you might want longer term. And so we want to essentially be able to filter our report so that we can see all our measures over those specific time periods. Now, the way we can't actually do that very effectively with our current model. So we need what's called a parameter table, which will sit out here that will be able to dynamically so we'll be able to dynamically select what time frame we want, and then that would then feed into our model as seamlessly as it was selecting any slicer which was actually physically in our model. So let's just run through it and it'll become much clearer how we actually how you can actually achieve it and how you would be able to actually achieve this on in a different scenario, because this is just a technique which you could use in many different scenarios. So what we've got to do is we've actually got to create a table. So you can do this a few ways, but one way you can do it quite easily is in this, you've got enter data up here. So you can select enter data like so, and I've pre-sorted out, I've pre-packaged this table, but you could actually just type it out. But this is essentially, just to speed things up a bit, this is essentially the table that you would want to create. So let's just have a quick look at this table. Down here, we've got our time frame column. So this is going to be our slicer column. We've got 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, 90 days, 180 days, and 360 days. And then we've got some metadata around that. We've got the actual days, and then we've got the an index column here. So I'm going to call this date ranges. Then I'm going to load that table in. Now, first of all, you always got to come to your data model to make sure that this is structured correctly. Now, the date ranges has no relationship. So there's no relationship between this table and what's going on in here. But we can integrate it. We can gather some information from this table and then integrate it into this model quite easily. So we'll come along here, and I'll show you how we actually do it. So first of all, let's actually just create this slicer. So if you think about what we're trying to achieve, we're trying to turn this into a slicer so that if a selection is made, then we only see that that time period in our calculations. So I'm just going to just format this properly first. So I'm going to turn this into a horizontal. I'm going to get rid of the header. I'm going to change the background of it. Now, one thing you'll quickly notice here is that these are all out of order, but that's why we have our index column. So the way you sort that is you come and find the date ranges column like so, and sort by the index column. And then now this is actually going to be properly in order. Cool. Okay, so now let's work out some of the logic here. So we need to somehow figure out if 30D is selected here, that actually equals 30 days. So the way you do that is you use a DAX formula called values. And what this does is if you have one thing selected in the table, you can actually bring only one value. You can just harvest one, what's called a scalar value. So if we go like so, and I say, well, if 30 days is selected, how many actual days is that? You'll see that this is now a calculation. We've harvested this calculation. So if we go to 90 days, we get 90, 180, so on and so forth. The issue actually that you do find with this though is that if nothing is selected, you get an error, which we can't have. So you've somehow got to make sure that if nothing is selected, or if more than one is selected, then something actually is returned. Now, the way you do that is you put some logic in here that goes like this. You go if has one value, and then we'll go time frame. So if one is selected, so if has one value equal to the actual days, but if it doesn't, then we want to default to 360. So we want to default to a year. So if nothing is selected, we've got 360. Okay, cool. So we're halfway there, which is great. So now that we've actually got this number, this calculation, we can now integrate it. We can use it, and we can use it to actually get the calculation that we want. Now, this is the logic that you need to write to make sure that this actually works and only showcases information over a certain time period. So let's just set this to a table so you can see what I mean. Okay, so now that we've got that, we are going to then now create some logic which says we're going to calculate what are the sales, but I only want to see the sales for the last 180 days. So this is how you do it. So you go sales in time period like so, and we go calculate total sales, and then we go filter. So we want to filter out. We only want to showcase dates which are in this particular date range. So then I'm going to go dates is greater than or equal to today minus the time selection. And then, but also we want to make sure that the date is less than or equal to today. Okay, so instead of using total sales now, what we want to do is we want to actually use this sales in time period, like so. And now it's going to return a blank value for anything that is outside of this range. And because it's blank, then it doesn't actually show up in our visual. So let's now actually turn this into a visual, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, so let's also just start making, let's just start shaping up our report as well. So you'll see now that we change like so, we change our date selection, that this chart now actually becomes dynamic. And we're feeding in this time selection calculation from our parameter table into our measures now, into our measures which sit over our data model. So now we can do some quite compelling stuff. So I'm just going to create a text box like so, and I'm going to call this performance. Just do some formatting to make it look good. Like so. Okay. And now we can start building out a report. So I'm just going to just quickly work away here, and I'm going to show you how you can make a really compelling report page with utilizing this technique, but reusing it a number of different times. So if we just copy and paste as your best friend here. So I'm just going to put my product name into this one, change the visual, like so. And then I'm going to just put my customers here, like so. So my customer name, and then we've got profit margins per region. So just find my regions here. And then we might want to have a map with our regions as well. So we'll just put latitude and longitude information here. Get rid of that. So it comes together pretty darn quickly once you have it all set up properly. And we still haven't finished yet. So what we can do now, because we've actually built this, we've used this technique, right? We've used this technique. We've got, if you think about how we've structured it now, we've got the sales and time period. Now we can reuse this formula. So we can actually incorporate any of these core measures. And that's why I like to call them core measures, because they're always what you start with. And then we can incorporate them into this technique, right? And so instead of using sales and time period, what I might want to do here is go profits and time period. I'm going to go profits like so. And then I'm going to sub out this core measure and put in total profits, like so. And then I'm going to do the same for profit margins as well. And we'll put here total profit margins. Cool. So now I can then bring my profit. I'll just make sure they're formatted correctly. Obviously, you want to do this at the start because it just makes it a lot easier at the back end. And we'll just make sure that that is filled correctly. And then so we've got sales and time period here, and then we want to put our profits in time period like so. And then we might want to go sales and time period as a card like so. Just copy and paste, easy as that. Now, if you think about what I've been doing here, all of these are the dynamic. They're the dynamic measures which are going to change these visuals. So none of this is going to be static. It's all going to be determined by what selection we have up here. So I can just make a few final touches here, just to make sure it all fits. And there's none there. Cool. Okay, so now we've got a pretty compelling report here. And check this out. If we wanted to only look at the last 7 days, all I've got to do is select 7 days there. And then we're looking at the information over 7 days. And we can see how it actually changes through time. And you see how dynamic this is? We're feeding information from a parameter table into our measures, which are determining what is showcasing in the visual there. So there's a huge amount of flexibility around what you can achieve with that. You can start imagining, wow, how could you actually incorporate this into a scenario that you would utilize yourself in your own environments? This is just one way you can do it, but you could also do it. You could also create different custom timeframes. You can also change what calculation shows in here. So if you wanted to jump between sales, profits, or cost, for example, you could have a slicer here that changes this from sales to profits or to costs. Along with this, you could use them in combination as well. You can actually have numerous filters all happening at the same time from different parameter tables. So really powerful stuff. And you can also say you wanted to dig into, say, the last 90 days for these particular products, for example. You can create a dynamic look like that. Obviously, you'd want to make sure that you change the interactions between this table and, say, this table and your other tables. But you can create a number of different looks. Hopefully you can recognize that now. Cool. So now we've done that. Now I want to show you how you can actually use multiple fact tables. So we're really going through a lot here. So hopefully it's all sinking in. The recording, if you do want to listen to the recording again, though, it will be we are going to send it out in an email after. So don't worry if not everything sticks right now. Okay, so now if we look at our data model here, what we want to do is we want to integrate our inventory table here. So we've got some inventory information. We know, well, how much inventory sits across all our different retail sites. So we've got to go and grab it. So I'm going to go into my query editor, and I'm going to bring in my inventory table, which is in just an Excel spreadsheet for this example, but it might be in a variety of different from a variety of different data sources, database, for example. And I'm just going to find it here. And I've got my inventory table like so. So if we look at it here, we've got, we know which location and which product and how much inventory is actually stocked for that in that particular location. So I'm just going to go OK. And I'm going to just change the name. And then I'm going to bring that into my data model. Now you'll see with this table that this does have relationships between these two other tables. And what's cool here is that Power BI, for one, actually guessed something right, and it actually guessed that this location ID was associated to the location table, and the product ID has a relationship to the product table, and that's right. In a lot of cases, it doesn't actually work out that well, and mainly because the column names are different. But in this case, the column names are exactly the same between what's in the lookup table and what's in the fact table. Now, why is this a big deal, and why does this make it so much better than doing analysis in Excel? Now, the reason is because the data model is just so much more efficient. What you can do now is you've got all your information, all your dimensions on your location up here, all your dimensions on your product up here. So within a report page, you can say use one of these dimensions like product name, and it will automatically filter this table and this table at exactly the same time. So you can start doing these dynamic comparisons between the two, which is really, really powerful. So let's actually just jump and do some of that, and it will make a lot more sense. Okay, so let's create a new page. And the first thing I want to do is just talk about the logic that we might want to use for our inventory analysis. So in some cases, when you're analyzing inventory, you may want to say, well, how many sales have we made over a certain time period, and how much inventory do we have in the location to actually service those sales? Because you don't want to be caught out with no inventory when you're making heaps of sales, and on the flip side, you don't want to have too much inventory if you're not making no sales. So we want to compare our sales table to the information in our inventory table and start making some decisions around that. Now, the first thing we want to do is create our core measures here. So when we're working with inventory, a lot of times we're just working in quantity. So I first of all got to create a measure called total quantity, so which just sums up how many quantities, what's the quantity of sales we'll be making. So I'm going to create that one there. But then I'm also going to go total inventory, like so, which sums up the inventory column. So I'm going to find the stock quantity for inventory, like so. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to work out, well, what's my inventory value? What's the dollar value of inventory which we've got in a particular location? We've got all the information we need for this. So I'm going to call this inventory value. And I'm going to use SumX again, and I'm going to look at the inventory table. We're going to go quantity times related. We know what the product cost is. It's in our product table, and because those two tables now have a relationship, I can build. I can run this calculation with the related function. So these now will all return values, and so you'll see here, just as a snapshot, that we've got about 9 million odd of inventory sitting out there in all our retail locations. And the same can be said. We can look at our quantity, etc., etc. Okay, so now let's start creating some visuals, and I'll show you how we can now mash up these measures we've created over these different tables. So I'm first of all going to look at, I'm going to grab some location information. Now remember, location is connected to both these fact tables. It's connected to our sales table and our inventory table. So I'm going to drag the counties up there, and I'm going to create this. I'm going to create a bar visual though. And I'm going to go inventory value. I want to look at my inventory value by county, like so. But then I also want to look at my inventory value per state as well. So I'm just going to copy and paste, and I'm going to bring in my state code, and I'm going to turn this into a donut chart. And so this is going to give us an option to select, look at something by county, or look at something by state. Now, let's now integrate these two measures. So we want to see, well, in terms of, just think about the flow of what we want to look at here. We want to select a particular county, and we want to see, well, what have been the sales over a certain time period versus how much inventory we have on hold. Now, I think a pretty fair assumption is that you want to see, well, if you've sold, you want to have about 6 months worth of stock potentially. So that you don't have to restock things every single month. It totally depends how you want to structure it, but we have all the makings of being able to run that analysis, because if you think about this custom field here, we already have 180 days. So we can actually drill into and say, well, how many sales over the last 180 days have we had versus how much total inventory do we hold at a particular site. So I'm going to grab the product name dimension here. And then next to it, I'm going to put total sales over a time period. But what we actually want to do is we want to look at it on quantity. So we've actually got to create another calculation here. I'm going to create a new measure and go quantity sold in time period. And then I'm just going to change this to total quantity, like so. As easy as that. And then I'm going to put that into my table. So that's showing the quantity sold over the selection. So if I go 180 days here, you'll see here that table then changes. So this is how much, the quantity that we have sold for each different product for everything at the moment. But if we select a county, you'll see that it changes because of the new context that we've added to the calculation. Then on top of this one, I'm then going to bring in my total inventory. Like so. So now we're comparing our two fact tables. So we can then now compare, well, how much did we sell in a particular time period? So 180 days in this case, the 6 months that we were talking about, versus how much inventory we have on hold. Because none of these other selections actually matter, what I'm going to do is I'm going to filter out all of these other ones and only look at 180 days. So that's the only selection that can be made. The way we do that is we just grab the time frame, and over the page, I'm just going to say 180 days. And then that's now only going to give us 180 days, which is what we want. So we can change this into a chart like so. And then we might want to just change the interactions. And now we can look at, well, okay, so for this county, we can see that product 73 has sold this much over the last 180 days versus this is the total inventory we have on hold right at this moment. So in this case, you'd probably say, well, that's okay. We've probably stocked appropriately. But then if we look at product 75, we're looking at, well, we've got all this inventory, but we haven't made any sales over the last 6 months. So that's an overstocking issue. So somehow you might want to disperse that to somewhere else, and so on and so forth. So hopefully you can see there that you're able to get some pretty decent insight by comparing these two tables now. And we can just jump to any different county like so, and we can run analysis for all those different areas. Or we could, for instance, say look at it from a state perspective as well. Because you might actually, within a particular state, you might actually have some stores which are overstocked, but some that need restocking. So instead of sending them out from your warehouses, you could actually just redistribute between and do that very quickly between your retail sites within a particular state. So pretty powerful stuff. But we haven't finished just yet. We can do a bit more here. What I want to do is I actually want to see this visual a slightly different way. I actually want to see it as a scatter plot, because I think that what that does is it actually enables you to see the products which you need to restock a lot easier. So I'm going to change this visual now and into this like so. And so what we're doing here is we're going to be able to quickly identify which products have a lot of inventory versus what quantity was actually sold. And so we can change this visual up quite quickly. And we might actually want to change the size of it as well. So we might want to go, well, what were the actual sales for these particular ones as well. Make sure we have a good border here. And so now we could then say jump to a particular county, and you'll then be able to quickly see, well, these are the products which are way overstocked. These ones out here. I mean, we've got 14 of product 93 in inventory, but we only sold one. We only sold one in the last 6 months. So these are your issued products that you're going to have to somehow redistribute elsewhere. You're going to have to discount, etc. Okay, so let's now just do a bit more measure branching where we build some more advanced logic in. Because we can. We've got the makings of some pretty advanced logic now. So what we might want to do is we might want to create a table. We might want to create a table down here of our products, and then we want to see some information on our products. So first of all, we want to see, okay, well, what's our total inventory of our products? And what was the quantity sold over that time period? Like so. And then we might also want to be able to see, well, what are the sales in that time period as well? Now we've got this though, I want to actually build some advanced logic and say, well, if it is below a certain, if we've got an amount of inventory which is far greater than the sales that we've made, I want to actually say, well, I want to notify that this is overstocked, and we need to somehow get this redistributed, or we need to start discounting. We need to do some marketing on these particular products. And so I'll just write the logic now. So let's now write the logic in here. So we'll go create a new measure. And we're going to use a function, a really awesome function called switch, which is it's like an if statement, but a far better way to structure things. So I'm going to go switch like so, and then I'm going to go true. And then I'm going to say, well, if total inventory is less than or equal to the quantity sold in time period, I'm going to say, well, we need to restock this. Because if we're selling heaps of something, we're selling a lot of something, but then we don't actually have the inventory for it over the next 6 months, then we want to restock it in that particular location. And then also we want to write some logic and go, if total inventory is greater than or equal to the quantity sold in time period, but times it by 3, then we want to say, well, this is actually overstocked. So these are going to be the products which are way overstocked. And if it's none of those, then we just want to make it blank. So switch allows you to write if statements like so, which are just far easier to read, in my opinion. So I'm going, and this again is the concept of measure branching. So we've got calculations which are coming in from a range of different tables. So we've got our total inventory table here. We've got our quantity, which is from our sales table. But then this quantity sold in period is also branched one one out because it's utilizing the logic from our parameter table. But then I'm going to integrate this now into our table down here. And that didn't work, which is no good. Let's figure out why. Interesting, something's not right there. Just give me a second while I figure out what's going on. So the way to work this out, the way I'll try to work it out, is we've got our total inventory like so, and then we've got our quantity sold in time period like so. So if we've got those two numbers, I wonder why this isn't working. So much easier to work these things out in tables, by the way. Hopefully I can work it out. Interesting. Sorry, this is why I didn't type the formula incorrectly. Here we go. So let's now get rid of that, and I'll put that in there. Cool. So now dynamically we can see, well, what are the overstocked products and the restocking products based on the logic that we've written in there. And so now we can select through our counties, and we can actually name these products here, and we can get them in a list. And so if you wanted to then sort this list, you could then say, well, these are all the products we need to restock, and these are the ones that are overstocked. And you can dynamically click through and see all that information in a table. You could then say, export this table. You could do a variety of different things to the table. So pretty powerful stuff there. Now we could finish off this table with some cards like so. So we might want to say, well, we'll put in our inventory value like so. And then I'll just quickly format this, make it all look nice. And we might want to put, say, total inventory in this one. And then we want to say total quantity sold like so. Cool. So now we've got a range of different looks. We can jump through all to our different counties and see which products need restocking, etc. We can start comparing between different areas. We can also click into our states, and we can see, well, what is restocked and what is overstocked. And so you're starting to get a lot of insights here. Hopefully you can see it. A lot of insights that enable you to start managing your inventory far more effectively, because you're actually comparing it to things that are going on in your business. You're actually looking at your sales, evaluating what your sales are, and saying, well, and making an informed decision in terms of, well, this is how much inventory we're expected to need in a particular location. Cool. So we've gone again through quite a lot there. But what I want to just lastly finish on is row level security, because this is an awesome technique. If you think about the information that we've got here, you may see that there's lots of different regions in our analysis. There's lots of different areas that we might have regional managers, or we might have store managers, and so on and so forth. And we don't want to have to rebuild this report 5 different times or 10 different times. We want to actually just use this one report, but then filter out all the information that doesn't apply to that particular region. So we can build a security model, and the technical term is row level security, on top of this information to then for when we actually publish it for those different managers or those different regions. Now, how we do that is we do this up here. So in the modeling section, you've got manage roles. So if you click on manage roles and you go create like so, what I might want to say, well, just for Florida, and I'm going to say, and then I'm going to make sure that in the location, the state code in this case is only going to be for FL, like so. And check this out. If I go view roles here and then I select Florida, you'll see that this entire report now is only Florida. Everything in the report is only Florida, but everything still works. So all the techniques that we've used are still viable, they still work. But if you just think about this whole report, just think this whole report is now filtered for only that location. And then when you go and publish this, if you go and publish this, you can then provision certain people to only look at this report with a filter of Florida on it. And we can create multiples of these. So we could say, okay, well, let's have a look at this for our New York team. Only they can see state code, which is NY. So, and then let's create one more, which could be, hold on, we'll go Georgia, I think. So we've got GA here, just as an example on a smaller one. So we'll go Georgia, and we'll add a filter here, which we'll call GA. And now you've built more, and this is your security model is building out. And so you could then now filter on the New York team. You can test it. You can say that this is only going to show New York, for example. Or you could say, do your Georgia team, like so. And then you've got all the information just for Georgia here. And now when you publish this, I won't publish it because I've got it all preloaded here. But when you publish it, I'll just bring this, my Power BI tenant in here. So when you actually publish it like so, you can then provision people to see certain areas. So this is the entire report, but then you want to go, well, into the dataset section, you've got the security area. Then I'm going to go security. And then within here, you can say, well, okay, well, only this particular person can see this. If we send this information to this particular person, then they're only going to be able to see what's in the New York team group, or the Florida team filter, or the Georgia team filter, and so on and so forth. And you can test it by going test as role here. And then you'll see that this will then filter, and then that person will only see, or that group of people will only see that Florida information. So this is this brings immense scale to your reporting. Just being able to build something once. I remember in roles of past having to redo reports, honestly, 10 times to send out to different areas. And now I only have to build it once and create this security model over the top of it. And then we get exactly the same information in a very standardized ways to everyone within our organization, regardless of where they are actually located. Okay, so we have gone over heaps today, and I wanted to because I wanted to showcase some new concepts, some new techniques that you wouldn't ordinarily use in Excel that, if used in Power BI, are immensely powerful for your analysis. So I'm going to stop there. I've been talking for quite a bit now, and I'm just going to see if there's any questions, and if there is, well, we can try and answer them. And certainly just write something in the chat if you enjoyed what you're watching and found this information interesting. I'm keen to know. I mean, we covered a lot here. We covered parameter tables, how to use them for dynamic visuals, how to use multiple tables, so have multiple fact tables, measure branching, and row level security. So really wide variety of things today, and hopefully it showcased how efficiently you can actually create some of this analysis. So we'll give it 30 more seconds if you want to put something in the chat. If not, we might wrap things up. And obviously you're more than welcome to contact me on my email at any time. If you just want to just jump to the Enterprise DNA website, my information's on there, or find me on LinkedIn. That's no problem at all. Love to connect with everyone. Cool. Okay, so we'll wrap it up there. Hopefully you found that useful, and hopefully if you're listening to a recording of this, you found it really useful. Look, if you've got any further questions, want to know a bit more about Power BI, don't hesitate to make contact. Love to hear from you, look forward to seeing you on the next webinar, which we'll be holding in a few days. Thanks.